Good morning, ladies and jelly spoons. Welcome to the Game Dojo. I'm your host, the Game Ninja. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to come from a different perspective this morning. By the way, welcome to Gamer Nation. You guys know where you are. You can look around. This is the LAN gaming build. Over the past few days, I've talked to a lot of people, and since the Switch 2 has come out, and somebody asked me, Rain, where do you come from? What kind of gamer are you? Well, I am Team Nintendo because in 1985, when Nintendo Entertainment System first came out, it was the first game system I had played that actually changed the way that I looked at gaming. Now, I had ColecoVision, I had Atari, and I had Commodore 64. We had a bunch of other gaming systems before the NES, but it wasn't until the NES and Nintendo that this gaming thing latched itself inside my soul. And I would say since 1985, that is when I became what we know as a gamer. And it started with the Nintendo Entertainment System. That's right. And this is an original Nintendo controller. In 1985, during the biggest game crash in history, it was thought that video games were nothing more than a hat trick, that they were going to fizzle out, that nothing would become of them, and that they held no value for monetary profit. But one small company, Nintendo, changed all of that. And with the launch of the Nintendo Entertainment System, Famicom, across the pond, family computer, it changed everybody's look and aspect on what was gaming. And it brought the industry back to the table to eat. So Nintendo literally saved the gaming industry single-handedly. But Nintendo is not a one-trick pony. So I'm going to take you down a little bit of a road. I'm going to take you down a road of gaming for me. And while many systems have come into my life, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, Sega 32X, Sega CD, Sega Dreamcast. Yeah, a lot of Sega systems. TurboGrafx 16, Panasonic 3DO Real, Atari Jaguar, Sony PlayStation, the Xbox. There's been tons of games that have come into my life back and forth, but there's only been one that has been constant throughout the years, and that is Nintendo. I can remember playing Super Mario Brothers for hours. There was no continue. You had a few set lives. Lucky enough, if you were able to do the exploit, you can get 99 lives. But once the game was over, it was over. And I thought, this is an awesome system. What's next? And they thought, what was next? So a few years later, in the 90s, they came out with the Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo. Now you're playing with power. Nintendo took its success of the Nintendo Entertainment System and jumped it on a multi-platform 16-bit hiatus that didn't stop for years. Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart. The Mario franchise had established itself as a franchise player and a staple at the dinner table of a lot of American children. Now, while you had Sega Genesis, who came along and had a war with Nintendo, You remember that Genesis does can't do this on Nintendo, blast processing. We went back and forth. They even came out with their Game Gear to compete with the Game Boy, and there was a big, huge war between the two, but one clearly lost, unfortunately. Sega had to bow out. Now, the Super Nintendo ran great, had amazing games. Arcade games like Killer Instinct came to its home system. Donkey Kong Country literally changed the face of platforming for Donkey Kong. It literally gave Donkey Kong a new lease on life and turned him into a franchise player. Wario, Princess, Yoshi, all these new characters now had their own IPs. Kirby, all had their own IPs and their own games that they could spread out on. All together they were in one game, but now they were all spread out and had their own IPs. And I said to myself, because we went to Blockbuster Video almost every weekend on Friday after school, they got their movie rentals, I got my game rental. My game rental was always Super Mario Kart. Always Super Mario Kart. Matter of fact, hold on one second. Matter of fact, like I was saying, the game meant so much to me that my brother, who know how much I love Mario Kart, found me an original SNES copy of said game, Mario Kart. Can y'all see that? Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo. Yeah, this was an awesome gift. I already have it in the system, but I wanted one just for my wall. Maybe one day I'll get some kind of frame or something for it. But yeah, Super Mario Kart on a Super Nintendo. But this is the game I rented almost every weekend without fail. And I thought to myself, Nintendo is not a one-trick pony. They literally proved that they deserve their right to be amongst gaming systems. They more than, it wasn't a fluke, because the NES was nothing short of genius. The SNES became a masterpiece. And then you had this talk about 64 graphics and 64 silicon graphics and 64 this and 64 that. And ladies and gentlemen, yet again, Nintendo stepped up to the table to silence that phrase that they are not a one-trick pony with the Nintendo 64. Now, I know what you're asking me. I still have all these original systems. There's the Nintendo 64, there's the NES over there, there's the Super Nintendo right there. I still have all my original systems. They are not the ones that I got back in the day because moving and family and things change, but I was able to regain them. And to me, that was probably the biggest feather in my cap, that during my life, I was able to chronicle and get these things back that I had lost. And I didn't value them the way that I should have then, the way that I do now. But now that I'm older, I can think about them and digest them a lot better. The Nintendo 64 was short of a masterpiece when it came to gaming. The true 64-bit system of its time. Others boasted 64-bit graphics, others boasted 64, but none of them truly performed. The Nintendo 64 truly performed, and it changed the face of gaming yet again. Its graphics, its ability, its processor, and believe it or not, they had the expansion pack. They gave you even more graphics, so you had even double from what you had. But games like GoldenEye became the staple for first-person shooters. Perfect Dark, Mario Kart 64, Mario 64, Zelda, like Killer Instinct, Donkey Kong Country. All these games that they had started one system before, they now had the runway to fly and put jets on different IPs and run with the ball. Some IPs that are still even valid today. Pokemon, but one of the games that really stuck out with me more than anything when it was back in the day was Turok Dinosaur Hunter. This was a game changer for me. I had played GoldenEye, and I love GoldenEye. I love Mario Kart. I love Mario World, Mario 64. But this game, you as a indigenous person taking on dinosaurs and people with an array of modern guns. It's funny because at first I thought this was like a period timepiece of like way back in the day during the dinosaurs Cretaceous period. But in fact, they did not have medi guns. They did not have supersonic world-bending stealth lasers that blew up the entire screen. This game right here was so... how can I put this without... I don't want to sound negative. How can I put this? This game was so extra that some of the guns that you were able to use, you could hold the trigger, charge it, fire it, and the entire screen would explode. Everything on it was gone, but you somehow. This was the first time where I was just like, oh my God, I love this game. The sound schemes, the level 1 keys where he drinks. I can't tell you how many times I literally had a thermos and stuff like that. I can't tell you how many times I literally picked up that thermos and did a level 1 key drink from Turok. And when he fell off a cliff and died, and then you see the sparks, the different color sparks around him, rainbow, lifted back up. I am Turok. This was beyond phenomenal, and I had never played anything like it. Nintendo 64, Perfect Dark, like I said before, Perfect Dark, and I still have those cartridges too. Perfect Dark was amazing. It literally piggybacked off of GoldenEye to be the changing dimension for first-person shooters. And without GoldenEye, without Turok, without Perfect Dark, you would have no Halo. You would have no Call of Duty. You would have none of them. Now, it's a little known fact that during this time, Nintendo was actually working with another company to release the Nintendo PlayStation. That's right. In case you didn't know, Nintendo and Sony both were going to produce the Nintendo PlayStation. I know. Think about what would happen if that had gone through. I know. The implications. Whew. But Nintendo kind of backed out at the last minute, feeling that maybe Sony would try to take over, use its IPs and run with the ball, which I can't say if it would or if it wouldn't, but they backed out of the deal, forcing Sony to become its own conglomerate, which we know now today as the Sony PlayStation. And it's still a huge household name even today. But when Sony PlayStation took off, now you have CD graphics, CD power, CD games. They could hold more storage. They could do more. They could be better graphic. Matter of fact, Nintendo has always had an impossible port on its system, where something that shouldn't have been able to be ported to the console was. Killer Instinct on Super Nintendo was always meant for the next gen system, the 64, because of what it was. But yet and still, they told them it couldn't be done on the Super Nintendo's graphics platform. Nintendo pulled off that impossible port. On 64, it was Resident Evil, because the only other system that ran Resident Evil at the time was PlayStation, and they thought there was no way you could put that amount of information in game onto a 64-bit cart, even with an expansion port, which is funny because we have the expansion pass now and they had the expansion port back then. They was always thinking. They never got rid of that expansion. But anyway, the impossible port was Resident Evil 2, which if any of you ever played it on a Nintendo 64, it's probably one of my favorite versions of the time. Yes, I loved PlayStation's graphics. I love the loading times. The loading times, though. Now remember, on cartridge, there was no disc, so there was no load times. That's the best part. There was no load times like PlayStation, where it had to load the disc and render in. Like, there were no moving parts. It's a cartridge. Nintendo's impossible port made Resident Evil also one of the first mature games on the system that proved that Nintendo was heading into a different territory and not just children. But as time marched on, Nintendo started to pull back a little bit, and the PlayStation came along onto the scene, the Dreamcast, the Sega Saturn, the Xbox soon came in later. And what was Nintendo to do with this cartridge-based system? Well, the cartridge-based system oddly ran very, very long, but Nintendo knew they would have to stand up to the table one more time. And they did that by answering with their next two systems, which I'll bring them both out because at the time it didn't really matter to me because I was just like, it's too rich for my blood, but I ended up getting both of them. And those are the Nintendo Wii, one of the best selling systems on Nintendo to date, and the GameCube. The GameCube. The Nintendo Wii and the GameCube. Nintendo's answer to the CD platform generation. Two consoles that back to back changed the way Nintendo would come at gaming, look at gaming, and perform gaming. One, disc system with the disc like PlayStation, but micro mini discs, which were pretty cool at the time. I mean, I had never seen anything like that, and the fact that they were so little but they could hold so much was amazing. The GameCube, even to this day when I hear that logo boot, it just does something to me. Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario, like I said, the staples that Nintendo used and re-released on each one of its systems, they knew what they were doing. They had lightning in a bottle and they knew how to channel it. With the Wii though, they jumped onto something new. Motion controls, and being able to change the experience of gaming. While GameCube was a box, some would say truly the first Xbox, it was a box that trapped, and they wanted the freedom to go beyond the box. So with sensor bars, Joy-Cons, and nunchuck controllers, they changed the way gaming would be played. You now could take this and golf, play baseball, you could box back and forth. You had, I don't know how you did it. I used this one right here for these two, this hand, because this one where the analog was, and this one I used for the trigger and the throw and everything, for like the fishing or the punching. This changed. Wii Sports was bundled with the Nintendo Wii for a great reason, because it was probably one of the best selling games that showcased what the Nintendo Wii could do. Not that the GameCube was going to be outdone in any way. GameCube still has a dedicated community to this day. And when the Nintendo Switch 2 just came out, one of the first things it launched with was the GameCube app, for great reasons. Because the GameCube and the games on the GameCube, and they launched with three great GameCube games. They launched with Soul Calibur 2, with Link, and that was just, well, we know why, because of Link. But Soul Calibur on a Nintendo platform, things are changing. You know what I'm saying? Then they had F-Zero, Jiro, or the new F-Zero, which is, it's pretty damn awesome. I'm not gonna lie. It's fast paced. I keep getting shredded on it. I got shredded back then. And then Zelda, Wind Waker, a reimagined version of Zelda. Now, both consoles, the Nintendo Wii and the GameCube, had games that to this day people still play, people still emulate, people still have on their systems. Now, Nintendo knew what it was doing when they emulated the GameCube for their Nintendo Switch 2 system, because they're moving into a different graphics platform. Now, what's next for Nintendo on the online expansion pass? Maybe a DS, since they're doing handhelds. maybe the Nintendo Wii, Dolphin, which oddly enough, that was the name of the project before it was actually called Nintendo Wii. It was called Project Dolphin. And it's funny that one of the biggest emulators out there is Dolphin, which if you don't have the ability to get an original Wii, you can still hook this up to Dolphin on the PC and play. And Dolphin is both Wii and GameCube together. Um, I have the original systems, and there's nothing to me better than the original hardware. But I will also say that emulation has come a very long way. For personal use and enjoyment, it's something that it can't be understated enough. If you can't go out there and spend big buckets of money and fight with people and fight decent and find these systems, it's a way to go. But I will always say the physical hardware will always be the better alternative, because it's just a different experience. Just a different experience. But Nintendo Wii and GameCube, for Nintendo again, back to back, gave them billions of dollars, worldwide accreditation, but yet PlayStation, Xbox kind of pulled away from them, doing their own thing. And Nintendo was fine. Nintendo has always been the underdog when it comes to consoles. I would say from the 90s into the 2000 transition. Nintendo has always been the underdog, and they've been fine with it. Rather than stepping in the ring and fight with big boys like PlayStation and Xbox on brand new graphics and next gen processors and all this or that, they stayed in their lane, they did their own thing, and that's the way it went. And think about it, almost everything up until that point had been a success. The NES had been a success. The SNES had been a success. The 64 had been a success. The Wii and the GameCube had been a major success. And Nintendo wanted to push further with the Wii, with another system to answer the call of next-gen graphics and handheld ability. You see, you could not take your Wii along with you. Neither could you take your GameCube. Your GameCube and your Wii were stable, and they weren't done with the handheld console market. So somebody came up with an idea of a console that you could both hold in your hands and play, and you can also hook it up to a TV and play. That was the Wii U. That's right. That was the Wii U. The Nintendo Wii U, though unpopular on a lot of dinner tables, on mine, I never had a problem with the Wii U. Never said anything negative about it. Never had any negative problems about it. Mario Maker, Mario Kart 8. Oh my God. Like, that was the highest selling game, one of the highest selling games on the Nintendo Wii U. Now, while people may say it is a commercial failure, I am not amongst those people, because I gauge not on monetary consignment. I gauge on fun factor and how much joy I get out of your system. Because there's a lot of things in the world that people universally hate that I love. And then there's things in the world that people universally love and I absolutely find dog shit. The Wii U was not one of them. The Wii U was like a familiar friend. It gave you the familiarity of being able to play something in your hand while also being able to play it on a TV through means, because the technology wasn't there yet for it, but the means of doing it was already there. And with Mario Kart 8 getting DLC, the Zelda games, oh my God, on the Wii U, Mario Maker, there had so many huge games that nobody ever wants to talk about. They just want to concentrate on the failure of the Wii U monetarily wise, which it didn't sell as much as its predecessors. So Nintendo went back to the drawing board. What could we make that would change the face of Nintendo and bring back all our loyal Nintendo fans? And then there was even talks that this would be Nintendo's last system, because they did not want to compete anymore with what was happening in the gaming market. There was talks to selling to Xbox. There was talks of this and talks of that, because everybody didn't have faith because of the Wii U and their next system. And their next system was the Nintendo Switch. Like the Wii U, it took two basic concepts, but now it had the technology to do it the correct way. What were those concepts? Really simple. Portability and handheld fun. HD graphics, a beautiful screen, a wonderful time. Take those great games you love so much on the go with you, wherever you want to go. But you can also take this game and switch it from a handheld to a console by docking it, and it goes right to your TV. The concept was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. What I'm playing in my hands, when I dock it, now I'm playing on TV. No cables, no hardware, no software, no changing this and that and changing that. It's just a complete synergy. What I had here now is there. Somebody else wants to watch TV? No problem. I lift up my Nintendo Switch from its dock, and now what was on the TV is in my hands right there. Even if you're playing a game, same spot, same place, no game crash, nothing. It's just in your hands again. The Nintendo Switch would go on to change the face of the gaming industry. Even during COVID, one of gaming's probably roughest times. Chip shortages, the ability to produce and production lines and costs, everything literally was failing in gaming again. Yet one little system that could not only produced, but also thrived. Nintendo only made a light and then an OLED during a time where chip shortages, parts, and COVID and the pandemic literally pushed everybody to the brink of extinction. Nintendo still ran, and every month delivered a first-party game for 3 years. Every month. When other game makers couldn't produce a game, PlayStation 5 premiered with no games. Xbox premiered 1 game, 2 games. The games in the console lives of PlayStation 5 and the new Xbox Series S. This is the least amount of games during a console life has ever been for either one of those huge mega consoles. PlayStation couldn't produce games the way it had in the PS4 and the PS3 or in the PS2. Xbox could not compete with its game launches the way it had done on the X or the S or the One or the 360. But they did have graphics. They did have teraflops. They did have new video cards. They did have an impressive screen. But they couldn't take it on the go with them. And that's where this little system became monstrous. They started doing deals with main game companies. And game companies was looking at it and said, it's a novel idea. I would love for you to be able to play my games on your system on the go. 2K, Call of Duty. Oh man, that would be awesome. And some of the hugest games made their way to the Nintendo Switch. You now had the Grand Theft Auto collection on the Nintendo Switch. You now had the Tomb Raider collection on the Nintendo Switch. You now had the Batman trilogy on the Nintendo Switch. You had The Walking Dead from Telltale. You had collections, and then this thing boomed. What if we released game collections of all those beautiful games that sold both on PlayStation and Xbox, but right here on the Nintendo Switch, where you could play on the go or in docked mode. So this was a console and a handheld, thus the Switch. And it came with the same ingenuity that all Nintendo products did. Right in the box, you had 2 controllers. Each Joy-Con itself was a controller. Left and right, buttons, D-pad, and analog. And then it came with a dog face controller, where these 2 Joy-Cons could dock to this, and now you had a wireless Pro controller. You could still buy a Pro controller if you wanted to. I have probably about 10 of them. The one I've been playing with the most is my Mario Pipe. My Mario Pipe is probably one of the ones I play with most. But yeah, I absolutely love this one. So they did have Pro controllers with it. But then they came out with the Nintendo Switch Online app, where you could play Nintendo 64, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Sega Genesis, that's right, even Sega Genesis, all on this handheld system for one price. And then they took that most high-selling game, Mario Kart 8, and made a deluxe version. So that on here, you got the deluxe version of all the DLCs and everything included with the Wii U version at the end. And then they decided to add DLC to it here while they were working on their next endeavor. So the Nintendo Switch quickly became a household name and a household brand. More than 150 million units were sold. You have almost like one in every household. It became a novelty to have something in your back pocket that you could take with you and then dock at home. I myself, I prefer playing in docked mode, but I've been known to use mine in a break room. I've been known to have at work some competitions. I've been known to go to this place and that place. I've been known to put down and do what I needed to do. You know what I'm saying? Meet in the park. Oh yeah, we gonna get down. Meet here. I had the Mario Kart belt. Now we treated it like the hardcore belt in WWF. Anywhere you want to throw down, we could. And now with the Switch, you had Super Mario Kart on the SNES app. That's right. Forgot about that, didn't you? I didn't. The Game Boy app had Super Circuit. That's right. The Nintendo 64 version had Mario Kart 64 on it. I know. You feeling it yet? You getting it? You getting where they going with this yet? Now you had the 3 Mario Karts plus Mario Kart 8 all under one roof. 4 Mario Kart experiences under one roof. I know. Smart and awesome. All those fun, amazing games from their previous system now inside their new system. The same thing they had done with the DS, the same thing they had done with the 3DS, the 2DS, and those handheld platforms that were now considered next-gen handhelds. Yo, I love the PlayStation Portable as much as anybody else, the PSP. I had both models and the Vita. Absolutely amazing, absolutely undercut, absolutely, literally, it was before its time. And it did not get recognized as much as it should have. It used the disc almost the same size as the GameCube disc. They were in a plastic tray called UMDs. Protected them from like scratches and things like that. Very smart concept. But with the DS, the 3DS, the Game Boy SP, the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, they just had a fun factor. Nintendo has always been great at handhelds. So they took their greatest technology and their greatest assets, the handhelds, and their greatest sellers, consoles, and they mixed them together. A match made in heaven. And 8 years later, Nintendo Switch was the talk of the town throughout the pandemic, throughout everything that was happening in the industry, from chip shortage to game studios layoffs to game studios being purchased and changed. Now, suddenly, Xbox was coming to Nintendo's table. Now, PlayStation was coming to Nintendo's table, and Nintendo was willing to have and take their games. But could Nintendo capitalize on the graphics? Could Nintendo actually run these games from these next gen people and these makers? Could Nintendo actually run and was capable of the things that they were striving for? Unfortunately, the software was not up to what they wanted, and the hardware did not back the software. Case in point, Mortal Kombat 1. Mortal Kombat 1, Hogwarts Legacy, Mortal Kombat 11, when they came out for the Switch, the Switch had already been out for years and was struggling to compete with the new type of graphics and engines and things that were running. So you got a less than perfect experience when it came to Mortal Kombat 11, Hogwarts Legacy, or Mortal Kombat 1. Still, the Mortal Kombat 1 made its way to the Switch over the PlayStation 4, which that's mind-blowing on another different level. But it ran it. Not well, but it ran it. And then people from the Xbox and the PlayStation generation were just like, yeah, see, I told you, it ain't got no power. You ain't got nothing. If you had power, I might be able to mess with you, but you can't even run like these games. You can't run these games. And Nintendo never wanted to be that on par with Xbox and PlayStation. But then the times have changed. Nintendo's new president, Nintendo's new ownership, Nintendo's new lead wanted to tackle and said, well, why can't we tackle PlayStation and Xbox? Why can't we be stomping with the big dogs? And for 8 years, when the Nintendo Switch came out, they were already thinking about the successor. That's right, I said that. They had already been thinking about the successor. Knowing that the technology they had at the time was limited, they wanted to do something groundbreaking and new. Something that would change for all times and all intents and purposes the way Nintendo fans, Nintendo enthusiasts, and their entire way and ecosystem of life could now be run up there with Xbox and PlayStation. They talked about what it would be capable of. They talked about what it would have in it. They talked about the games that would run on it. And then now you're talking about Cyberpunk 2077, a game that could not run on the PlayStation, could not run on Xbox. Literally, the PlayStation had to remove it from its store. Game-breaking glitches, too powerful. The only system that could run it well was a PC. But now you're talking about a Nintendo system, handheld, running Cyberpunk better when PlayStation and Xbox newest and latest generation systems could not perform? That seemed far-fetched. That seemed really reaching. But then, in April, Nintendo dropped a bomb. They announced the successor for the Nintendo Switch. It will be called the Nintendo Switch 2. And they gave us little bits of information and kept the biggest stuff under wrap. Pre-orders would launch and they would sell out almost everywhere online in less than an hour. I did my own launch because my own pre-order video. I've never pre-ordered before. I've never been that person to been that ambitious, but with the economy of everything going on, both in tariffs, trades, and parts, we all knew there was a potential for this system to go up higher in price, its accessories higher in price, and it just didn't look good. It felt out of reach. But Nintendo guaranteed they would stay at their price, $450. And people were like, that's a lot. It is, but it's still less than PlayStation, it's still less than Xbox, but their production costs made it about $400 per unit. So they're charging you $50 over production costs. It's not bad. That means they're operating at a loss. They knew that. And then the games being, some of the games being $80 in the margin. People always talked about the Mario Kart being $80. Oh, it's $80. You can go back, man. You can go back to the 90s and games were $90. You can go back and look at some of the games from the Super Nintendo, from the Nintendo 64. You can go back and look at some TurboGrafx 16, some Sega CD, some Sega 32X. You can go back and look in old genre and games from circulars. Look it up on Google. Games were $80 and $90 back then. So cut it with the $80, oh, I can't, it's $80. Then don't buy it. But there was a workaround for Nintendo. They said if you wanted to get that Mario Kart Day 1, which launched Day 1 as one of their 24 launch titles. I say again, 24 launch titles. Yeah, they launched with over 24 launch titles. Mario Kart being the biggest. And they bundled it with the Switch and took $30 off. Another loss. So now the system is sold at a loss. The game is sold at a loss. And you get to play and experience our brand new system. And what that new system was the Nintendo Switch 2. This system learned from... What I love about Nintendo is they learned from everything in their mistakes, everything in their past systems, everything in their back catalog of ideas, concerns, and they learn from them and they change it. All people wanted from the majorly successful Nintendo Switch was just a stronger, beefier, better Nintendo Switch and experience. And ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what Nintendo Switch delivered. The Nintendo Switch 2 is everything the Nintendo Switch 1 was, cranked up to a 9, to a 10. It takes its old games and they look so much better on this brand new screen. Their NVIDIA custom processor. You can hear people talk and hate about the Nintendo Switch. Some people are even paid to bash them. Some people are paid to take them down. But Nintendo's biggest launch, and you can look into this, may have just beat every system in history for a launch, for a game launch. If the numbers that they're crunching now, even on the low end, is above 3-point-something million units sold, it would be one of the biggest launches in console history. Not in Nintendo history, in console history. Previously, only being, I believe it was was it PlayStation 2? I think it might have been PlayStation 2. Anyways, but that's going to come out, and we're going to find out the true numbers. But with everybody waiting in line like it was Christmas Eve, everybody waiting outside like it was a Black Friday event, and that was mirrored all around the world, Nintendo Switch proved one thing. It could step up and stomp with the big dogs. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not played the Nintendo Switch 2, don't listen to the haters. Don't listen to the speak. And when it comes to the Steam Deck, I had a Steam Deck. I don't like going through and configuring things just to get things to work. I don't like the fact that everything is just all digital. I don't like the fact that everything is just through Steam, where you don't own nothing. You don't have nothing. They can take it away from you at any time. You have to worry about Windows apps. Like, there's so much to it. This is just intuitive, out of the box, and ready to go. And sound-wise, video-wise, processor-wise, 120 frames per second with HDR is something that most TVs can't handle. Yet in handheld, you're going to give me 120 frames per second with HDR? Look at that. Look at the quality of that screen. Listen to the speaker quality. And functions. You press a button, native chat. Now, hold on. Let me explain that chat to you. The other day I was sitting in my bed playing Mario Kart World. Somebody chimed in, wanted to chat. Hit the button to chat, now we're talking. No headsets. No plugins. No controller plugins. And it's so strong and so great that it filtered out my air conditioner, my fan, background chatter. I could hear them clearly. They could hear me clearly. Nothing. No instrumentations, no headsets, none of that. It just worked perfectly. I don't even know how they achieved that ability, but it worked perfectly. Now you have a camera that you can attach to this where people can see your face while you're gaming. You can get little icons that pop up, not just one game, but any game. You can put your face as an icon. You can look at other people's videos. You can show your feed and share your screen. Now all of this is done native on the Nintendo Switch via the expansion pass. But the chat is free until 2026 right now. They gave you chat free. The innovativeness of this system and the amazing capabilities it has is trying to be overshadowed by negative press, negative talk, and negative people. But the dollars don't lie. People don't lie. Figures don't lie. Every place that I went to had 200 to 300 people outside, wrapped around the corner, waiting to get a Nintendo Switch for pre-order. That sold out. When they came out, the same people that was talking about, I'm not gonna get it, I'm not gonna buy it, it's not this, it's not that, oh, it's a PlayStation 4, it's just a PlayStation 4. But you bought one. For everybody who claims not to buy one, how could they have sold that well if nobody bought them? Clearly, a lot of people bought them, and not just in this country, around the globe. Nintendo had a very successful launch. A very successful day one launch. And let me tell you something. Transferring from console to console has never been easier. You are going to need an SD card because I am telling you that 256 will fill up quick, especially if you had a 512 in your original Switch like I did. It'll fill up pretty quick. I'm about, I would say 98% filled up. So I definitely have to get an SD card. But the screen, the ability, the sound, the capabilities, and I haven't even figured out the things in this. And once I want to show you guys this one because I just figured this out the other day, and it's insane. So while I was playing let me back out of this real quick. All right, show you back out of this real quick. Where is it? All right, so while I was in my GameCube app, right? While I was in my GameCube app, that's how it shows up. Regular GameCube app, that's how it shows up. But I kept saying, I kind of wish it had that logo from the startup from the old GameCube back in the day. That iconic startup literally made the feeling worth it. And I had started it up and I was playing with my Joy-Cons just to configure it. And let me show you guys, if you guys don't know, what happens when you start it up and wiggle your Joy-Cons. The original GameCube boot up logo. They didn't even talk about it. They didn't even say it. They left it for you to discover yourself. And that's the great thing about this system. I'm still discovering things. 72 hours later, over the weekend, I'm still discovering things about this system that nobody talked about and nobody knew. On top of that, you also can literally take off your Joy-Con, turn it sideways, and it's a mouse. On any surface. See that? Do you see that? Do you see the pointer? On any surface. It just knows. How intuitive is that? It's a mouse as well. Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably the best thing they've ever produced, but it's also the most innovative. And not this, it's a tablet. We haven't even begun the things that they're actually doing with this because Nintendo had pushed this so far that certain apps and certain features and certain things aren't even out yet. Remember, we're just days from the launch that when it happened. It happened, I think, last Friday. Happened Friday, over the weekend. Thursday. And this system was launched beautifully It was it the way they handled everything from point A to point B was nothing short of amazing. Mine arrived at 5:30 in the morning from Walmart with a bag of Pringles and a Coca-Cola that said homie on it, and it said enjoy your gaming experience. Bruh, you had me at Pringles. So now at 6 o'clock in the morning, because I was expecting it, they originally said they guaranteed it before 9 a.m., but then everybody got the email that said by 10 p.m. And that's what we expected. So I set my alarm for 6 o'clock in the morning. I was going to get up, get some breakfast, and watch the door all day, try to film the dude come up to my door. But I was awakened at 5:45 in the morning by the nightmare creature who said, yo, somebody just dropped something on the porch. I'm like, what? I was like, it's your Nintendo Switch. I was like, it can't be. He was like, no, it's your Nintendo Switch. I said, 5:30 in the morning? It can't be. It can't possibly be my Switch. She brought it in the room. I looked at the Walmart box and I looked in the bag and it came with chips and it came with Pringles and a Coke. And I'm like, with the thank you card, I'm like, it can't be the Switch. Like they said by 10 p.m., like it can't be my Switch. So I literally just grabbed my camera, put it up on there. I was gonna film either a failure, a cry, or whatever. Didn't matter. But when I cut open the box and I did it live for you and I put the video up, that it was in fact my Nintendo Switch and they had delivered it by 5:30 in the morning. I was so jazzed. Literally didn't eat breakfast, didn't brush my teeth, didn't take my pills, had sleep in my eyes, wasn't even awake. And there she was. The day had come. The day that I had thought about, longed over, patiently waited, even when they announced it. Like it just seemed so far off back in January. It seemed so far off, and now we're here, and now it's in my hands, and all I can think of is I can't wait to play Mario Kart. This thing, the Nintendo Switch 2, I can't explain to you guys how revolutionary it is, how amazing it is, and how literally the Nintendo Switch 1 was the blueprint for it. It was the blueprint. See? Pop it in and there it's on the TV already. Always wants to play. And I don't think I would ever see in my entire life one system get better after another, after another, after another, after another. And with the Nintendo Switch selling the way it did, with its array of games, over 1,000 amazing games on the Nintendo Switch, with its ports, impossible ports again. Now not just one game, but impossible port after impossible. If you've played Monster Hunter Rise or Sunbreak on the Nintendo Switch, you know what I'm talking about when I say graphics. Like, damn. Xenoblade Chronicles. There's certain games on the Nintendo Switch where you're just like, how? I don't understand. Like, Mortal Kombat looked like balls and Hogwarts Legacy looked like balls, but how can it run Xenoblade Chronicles and Monster Hunter Rise? Like, when you see certain games performing on the Nintendo Switch, you're like, it's outperforming its own power. Like, how are they rendering this? And I'm not talking about the cloud streamed games. I'm talking about native on the hardware. There's some games that you're just like, this is absolutely beautiful. Like, the Nintendo Switch, they strut their stuff with certain games, and you can see that in a lot of the Nintendo Switch 1 games. But I'm looking forward to Nintendo Switch 2's catalog coming out, because you blew me away with Mario Kart, Cyberpunk, and Hogwarts Legacy. I have a Hogwarts Legacy video coming up later that for a few seconds I forgot I was playing Switch. I thought I was playing it. I have it on my PC, and my PC is maxed out. I got a gaming rig that is phenomenal. It is maxed out. And for a few minutes I forgot I was playing it on Switch. I literally had to look down at my controller and remember I wasn't playing it on PC. I was playing it on Switch. And I'm like, I just did a Mortal Kombat video, Mortal Kombat 1 now. Mortal Kombat 1 on this, the gameplay, and the game is like $10, like base version on the eShop. What? I did The Witcher Now remember, these are games that you're not told had an update. This is just the new hardware and software rendering this game better, because these games were intended to run at higher frame rates with better graphics and abilities. These games now run, even the trashiest games, now run so much better on the Nintendo Switch 2 that I had to break out my Zelda crate of Nintendo Switch 1 games, and I've got a bunch of them, and I started testing every single last one of these. Some of them we know it got free upgrades, some of them don't, but the videos I'm going to be playing all this week long are going to be probably from Nintendo Switch 1 and some Nintendo Switch 2 games, but I want to showcase just what the Nintendo Switch 1 games look like on a Nintendo Switch 2. Once again, that's a hand clap. Everything we asked for out of the Nintendo Switch 1 for a Nintendo Switch 2, you gave us. Why reinvent the wheel? And I love people say that, like, oh, well, it's basically the same system that they had before. It's just stronger and better. What do you want out of a well-performed, amazing system that broke records? You don't reinvent the wheel to a failure. You take what you have, that wheel, and you make it better. You add rubber to the tire. You add some air inside that tire. You give it a little fluff, the little Firestone logo. You don't reinvent the wheel. You take it and run with it. And that's what the Switch did in fathoms. Anybody who has one, anybody who's played it, anybody who's literally, and I'm going to say obtusely, because there's a lot of people paid to tank this, there's a lot of people paid to hate this, and there's a lot of hateration from fanboys from other consoles. If you on Xbox, then be about Xbox. If you on PlayStation, then be about PlayStation. But don't try to influence and hurt somebody's decision. I saw a video earlier today of a little kid playing the Nintendo Switch 2, and literally in the comments, it was just nothing but hate. Nothing but hate and hate and hate and hate for this kid. Oh, you spent $500-$600, blah, 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 blah. Like, this is the last time I'm going to speak on it, because I've dealt with these people too. And you know what? I don't care. I've dealt with these people too. I've dealt with these people on my social media, and I'm to the point where I don't care. I don't care. And some of them I clap back at, and some of them I talk to, and some of them I just gave an illuminating dissertation of my point of view on things. But when it comes to the point of it is, we didn't work for my money. We didn't work. You weren't there alongside me. You weren't there alongside me with the purchase. You weren't there alongside me in the fields when I was working for it. It's our money, our time, our investment. If you don't like it, turn the station. If you don't like it, swipe left. If you don't like it, scroll right past the video. But to sit there and be hater for no other reason than trying to tank somebody's experience, that's just scumbagish, man. That's just a scumbag, bro. And there's really no room in the gamer community for people like that, period. Look, I got an Xbox, I got PlayStation, I got Nintendo, I got all the systems, I got a PC. I game on my PC as much as I do my Nintendo or my PlayStation or my Xbox. Look, they all have lacking capabilities, they all have problems. The games are all expensive, the systems are all expensive. But don't try to tank somebody's experience because you yourself have something lacking in you. Period. This is gaming. There's room for a huge plethora of gamers. Multi-console, multi-platform, multi-chat room. Some games even have cross-compatibility so that we can play together. Don't divide the gaming community by hating against one another. Look, PlayStation is great. They have their games that are great. Xbox is great. They have their games is great. I could just as easily bust Call of Duty on my PlayStation as I could bust Indiana Jones on my Xbox. I could also bust the Claire Obscure on my computer, or that new Elden Ring Night Rain. Because a lot of people were like, oh man, you should bust this, this is a better game. Check out my channel. I play everything. I just played Night Rain. I just started Night Rain. I play everything. Clair Obscure. I play everything. I am a gamer. Therefore, I am a gamer. And I don't have the time to fight and argue with people based off of their opinion, their experience, and their lacks. If you don't like it, keep your opinions to yourself. Other than that, don't take somebody's gaming experience. Imagine if you were that child. I'm just talking about the video I saw. Imagine if you were that child and so many people came at you with hate as a child, how you would feel. They're a child, they're children. Imagine how grown people would attack a child. What kind of scumbag would do that? And I'm saying this to be real, 100% real. I'm not down talking you. I'm not literally trying to pull it to the side. I'm saying, what kind of scumbag attacks a kid because they want joy in their life? Look, people want Nintendo because they want to play Nintendo games. Some kid-friendly games can only be found on Nintendo. They can't be found on an Xbox or PlayStation. Maybe they're not an Xbox or PlayStation person. That's okay. Some people are Xbox and PlayStation people. That is okay. Some people are Sega people. That is okay. Some people are just Atari people, and that is okay. Some people are cell phone people. Cell phone gaming. That is okay. Some people are playing on a board game. That is okay. To all my people out there who are gamers, and this includes all of you in that demographic, whether you're playing Dungeons and Dragons in the backyard or in the house with your homies, whether you're online squatting on Madden or playing Halo, whether you're playing Indiana Jones on Xbox or PlayStation now, or whether you're on a Nintendo Switch playing Mario Kart World, or on your cell phone playing PUBG, or if you're playing Fortnite, if you're playing any game right now that you're playing out there, you are a gamer, and you are part of a community of people that get you. We're all gamers. And for people who don't get that, for people who don't understand that, for people who don't feel that, you need to be kicked the hell out of here because you're not a part of it. You don't understand. There's already so much stacked against us in the world right now. Why would you bring that volatility, that anger, that hate into the gaming spaces? These are spaces that we find safe. These are spaces that we enjoy. These are spaces where we can be ourselves and be what we want to be. We can save the world like we always wanted to. We could be Superman. We could be Batman. We could be Master Chief. We could be Indiana Jones. We could be Super Mario. We could be anything in our gaming spaces because this is what we escape to be. This is our escapism. This is our playground. And if you think for a second that a couple 100 people are going to tank the face of a launch and a feeling of joy in people's eyes, it's not going to happen. So to all of y'all posting out their videos and y'all making y'all videos and y'all smiling, you dancing with your Nintendo Switch too, keep dancing. Keep posting. Because I'm telling you, at the end of the day, it's about you. Not about them. It's about you. So next time, guys, thank you for joining me for a walk down memory lane of where we started from. Like they say, started from the bottom, now we here. And from Nintendo NES to Super Nintendo to Nintendo 64 to GameCube and the Wii and the Wii U. I can't grab it. I'll grab this one. This one's probably better. To the Switch. To the Switch. And the Switch 2. We have a legacy of Nintendo that can not easily be extinguished by one or two comments. Nintendo, yo, I celebrate y'all. You see that? All of them. Nintendo, you have entertained me to my core since 1985, and here we are in 2025, and I'm blessed to still be alive with you, brother, and I am gonna game with you until I can't no more, and until that light is extinguished inside of me. I game everything, but you was my day one, and you still my day one. And to this day, son, I'm Team Nintendo. That's why Mario's on my wall. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for joining me. Happy gaming.